AZ Dalsiness and Mike Gator from MimicMethod.com, where you can learn a foreign language by ear, same as babies do. You do it that way, what happens, Mike? You learn faster, understand more, and speak with a better accent. And right now we're on day, I believe, 35 of Mike's mission to learn Italian by ear using the Mimic Method. And Mike, if you remember from our last video, was here with me in Lisbon, and he showed his ability to speak to a script. His Italian had improved a great deal. In this video, we're not going to show Italian progress from Mike. We're going to do a little bit of a discussion. But because now Mike is in Italy. He left me here high and dry. And but I'm proud of him. You know, I'm like a proud mother who's seen his baby duckling fly off into the sunset. Oh. So Mike, I would like for you to tell us in the audience, what have you done so far in Italy? Where did you go? Where are you now? What have you seen? What have you done? You know, time to call home and tell your parents what's going on.
Well, all right. I already did that this morning, but I'll tell you about what I did so far. I mean, I left Lisbon, right? I was in Rome for a couple days. Really cool. And then I came down to the south of Italy, which is quite different from the center or the north. And that's where I'm going to remain until the end of this trip, which is like another week from now. So about 2 weeks in total.
Where exactly? South of Italy or just? What?
South of Italy, Sicily. So Palermo is the city.
Palermo is the city. Gotcha.
Capital of Sicily, yeah.
Cool. And why did you choose Sicily, by the way, as your location?
Mainly because the weather. It's kind of warm here still. Got to stay away from the cold. And then also because part of my family, like, the ancestry comes from more of the south of Italy, so it was cool. It'd be cool to like experience this versus the north. The north is more related. It's more similar to Europe, and the south is quite a different culture.
Or Mediterranean, yeah.
Mediterranean,
right, so yeah. And for those of you who are new to this, Mike is Italian American, several generations removed. When did the first gaeta, or how do you say gaeta in Italian? Like
gaeta.
When did the first gaeta come from Italy or Sicily or maybe Palermo? I don't know. Or is there a town called Gaeta?
Yeah, in Naples. Yeah, or in the Naples area.
When did the first Gaeta come to the U.S.?
Probably like 3 generations back, right?
Either father was born in the U.S. or born in Italy?
Probably born in Italy. Yeah, definitely born in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Huh, cool. Mm-hmm. And so you're telling me actually before that when you walk around, everyone looks like you. And does everyone assume you're Italian when you walk around?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. Like, it's just a bunch of clones of me here in Sicily. So it's kind of cool to really find a place where you blend in. But now the pressure's on to like really know the language. And it's especially weird when I'm trying to speak Italian, when I start out and I say, you know, something in Italian to them, but then something's kind of off. I've done that a few times, and they're just kind of like, is there something wrong with his brain? Because he's not saying that word right. So yeah. I run into that situation a lot.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because so the third foreign language I learned was Portuguese. I learned Spanish in Mexico first. Then I went to China and learned Chinese. And despite how good I was able to speak those languages, I was never able to, you know, fool anyone that I was a native Mexican. Nor native Chinese. Sometimes I got away with Chinese, but it wasn't really working. And but third language was Portuguese. I learned it in Brazil, in Rio. And as some of you watching may know, I look very stereotypically Brazilian. So walking around the streets, you know, everyone would be talking to me. Everyone, like, I feel like when people see me in the street, they look and they see that guy, and they look at me like, that guy knows directions to where I'm trying to go. And they always come and ask me the questions and stuff. So are you getting that? Are you getting like a lot of situations where people are randomly asking you questions in the street?
Oh, yeah, sure. No, like in the supermarket, right? I'm just in the supermarket and I'm getting something to eat. But actually, no, a better story would be like when I was at the bus stop and someone's asking, no, does the bus come this way? Like in Italian. And I was like, I'm not really sure. I'm not really from here. And they're like, oh, me neither. And then we kind of just both laughed. And I was like, yes, I got out of that moment alive. And then they come back when I go to the bus. And then they ask me something about the seats or like where are they supposed to sit. And I was just kind of like, I don't know. And then I just like backed away and they were like, what did I do? So
yeah, it makes for a lot of awkward situations. Cause like, yeah, so like, you know, in Brazil, I'm learning Portuguese. I didn't know it yet. So, but you know, we do MimicMethod style. We get the accent pretty good right from the beginning. So, if you came in there and you're like in an accent, like, I don't know, bus stop, they're like, oh, this guy's a foreigner. But when you're like, bus stop, I do not know. Carry on. And they're like, and yeah, I remember one time I was asking someone in Portuguese, like, how to say something like a chair. I'm like pointing to a chair. I'm like, what is the word for this object? And they're like, chair? Chair. Like, what? Like, could you say it one more time, please? Chair? Yeah, they just think they think you're crazy. My advice to you for that is because, it's cool. It kind of makes me funny, but sometimes you want to meet people and like, you don't want people to have their first impression of you be something just like weird off. So I kind of worked into my script to work in my introduction to say like, hey, I'm not from here. I'm learning Portuguese. What is this thing called? And then they're like, okay. And then you can just, clear the air from the very beginning. Cool, man. Yeah. So what I wanted to get into with the discussion with you is, so you started learning Italian while you were in Lisbon, and then now you just got to Italy. Like 5 or 6 days there now?
In total, yeah, almost a week.
Almost a week there. So I would like to hear from your point of view the difference in your experience from learning the language outside of the country where it's spoken versus learning it inside the country where it's spoken. What are some differences you've noticed so far? What are some pros and cons of each?
Yeah, sure. No, when I was in Lisbon, right, it was more comfortable. But the downside is like there's going to be a halt to your progress. It's like going to the gym just to work out. But now when I'm in Italy, everything that I do is like a little bit harder. It's like an exercise. Everything's a workout. So I'm in Italy. I'm seeing things in Italian on signs. I'm hearing it in the street with people. I'm hearing it in the radio. Anytime I have to do anything, I have to go order food. I have to go to get a taxi. This all requires Italian, and so there's no escaping from it. But the plus side is like it's there in your face every day. So sometimes I'm like not escaping it. I'm thinking in Italian sometimes, and like the words just come out, and I don't even think about it. But other times I feel very burnt out from doing it. So like what it has in being uncomfortable and kind of just having to be there, it makes up for in progress. I think is happening faster.
Cool. So Mike, what I want to ask you about in this call is we spoke before about introversion and extroversion. And right now you're in Italy and you started learning Italian in Portugal. And one thing I think that's important, or the best thing you get from the immersion context, is you get more variety in your interactions. And when you think about extroversion, it's a thing where it responds well to variety. So as an extrovert, I can say that I like novelty. I like meeting lots of people. I like being in groups. And from what I understand about introverts, it's a lot more about depth, a lot more about one-on-one interactions. And now you're in the immersion context. And I imagine, before in Lisbon, you had a lot more you can go deep with your italki teachers. But now in Italy, you're kind of might be overwhelmed or immersed in that variety of Italian experiences. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how that's been for you so far this past week you've been in Italy, and if you think it's improving the speed with which you're acquiring your Italian abilities.
I still do a few things with people, but I make sure it's kind of one-on-one at first. That way it takes away a lot of the friction from group settings, especially if I don't speak the language. So I'm using websites like Couchsurfing and other things like that, and meetup.com. Those things are good for finding events with people who want to do mutual stuff. So like a very popular thing is not here, but I haven't done it, is like a language exchange group. But I've met a few people from Couchsurfing, and that's been very helpful for me because one, they know that I'm just learning Italian, and so they are sympathetic to that. And two, they want to spend time and show like the city to foreigners. So that's like a perfect couple there. So I'm just kind of like seeing things in the city, but also just like speaking Italian with like this tour guide / person who wants to get to know you. So it's really, really cool.
Nice. And have you noticed any kind of patterns in, what types of people you learn the most from in Italian? People who, like you mentioned, people who are interested in showing you their city and showing you their culture seem to be the most likely to, adopt you under their wing and help you learn Italian. Are there any other kind of personality traits or aspects of people that you find are, more conducive to helping you learn the language?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, may seem obvious, but like people who are very patient for the other language learner, because if you're speaking kind of the way you are, and then they respond in like full blown how they're going to talk to their friends, it's not gonna be a good interaction. It
Mm,
hasn't been good interaction when people do that, and sometimes they insist on doing that, and I just don't want to hang out with people like that.
mm,
And then people who take their language and like tone it down a little bit, just to make sure that they're getting clearly communicating with you. That is a game. It's a really helpful thing. So people who are sympathetic to that, you know.
mm. Well, sure. I encourage you, by the way, to kind of maybe this might be my extrovert variety thing, but I encourage you to mix it up. And here's why: it's good to be with people who are more empathetic of your ability and speak slow and use proper words and stuff like that to kind of guide you along. But in my experience, it's also good to have that person who's just completely oblivious to the fact that you're not Italian, and he just like like speaks really fast, uses all the deepest slang, and like
Oh
you have no
yeah,
idea what he's saying.
yeah.
Those people don't know what's going on, but there is another effect. I think about everything a lot in terms of like martial arts, and I do jujitsu, and you have like white belts, blue belts, purple belts, brown belts, and black belts. And if you're just starting, it's good to train with other white belts. It's good to do a little bit above you with blue belts, blah 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 blah. But and if you go with the black belt, he just whoops your ass, and you have no idea what's going on. You're just like tapping, like ah. But something very subconsciously is happening when you're getting your ass kicked from a black belt, and it can, because at the end of the day, what is your goal? To be a black belt, right?
To get my
So
ass kicked.
and get your ass kicked. So you got to find those black belt, deep slang, fast talking, ass kicking Italian dudes and girls, and hang out with them every once in a while, and just kind of nod your head completely, having I had no idea what they're talking about.
Hmm.
But yeah, just kind of like once again, dip your toe in the deep end for a little bit, and then you can swim back to the more accommodating people. Do you know people like that so far, or in your current crew?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to escape it. Actually, a couple people who are hosting this Airbnb for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, they're Italian, but as much as I tell them like I'm just learning, they're just kind of like, oh, so you're learning, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, okay, great. So it's good because even though I want to avoid it, it's there like before I can even leave the door, before I can even leave the house. So it happens anyway, you know.
Gotcha. And last thing I want to ask you about is how you doing with the English avoidance? I know it's very difficult when you go to a place and you want to speak Italian. If those people speak English, I'm not sure what kind of English level people have on average in Palermo,
Mm.
but I know me personally, for example, if I go to a place where everyone speaks English and I'm trying to learn their language, I just lie and
Mm.
tell people I'm like French or Brazilian, and they're like, oh, I can tell you in English. I'm like, no, I only know my language and the language you speak. I'm trying to learn it, and then, but I imagine you don't really pull those kind of tricks out. And if someone speaks to you in English, you might give into it. Like, how are you managing that?
Yeah, no. I completely realize. So when I was in Rome, English, it's the tourism capital, right? So
Mm,
anytime I try to say something in Italian and it's not perfect, they're just kind of like, okay, you tourist, like, here's what you have to do, here's where the bus is. And I'm like, all right. So those interactions were not very helpful. And I'm actually really thankful that in Palermo, they choose not to speak English very much. And if they do speak English, it's kind of like a pretty broken English, like
mm,
low level. But younger people will speak English, but they're happy to speak Italian because it's not that context where you're a tourist. You're in a place that's where you're staying for a longer period of time. So
mm,
I'm very happy that there's no English context, because I know in other places if I tried to learn like a language and everyone spoke English also, then I think I would have a much more difficult time, especially if I wasn't very confident in my speaking abilities yet, because
mm.
that would affect how I speak, and that would make them want
Sure.
to change to English. Yeah.
It sounds like as well. I've noticed in my travels that some cultures are very aware. People are more likely to be aware of the struggle of learning a foreign language,
Hmm.
and some people in other cultures are completely oblivious to it.
Hmm.
And so I've noticed in some places you go, people see you're trying to learn Italian. They might know English, but they'll make a choice to keep Italian with you to help you learn.
Hmm.
Would you say then, and that on average, the people you're meeting in Palermo who do speak English fall into that category? They're a lot more like empathetic and accommodating of your Italian journey.
Yeah, they're like, look, I will speak in Italian the whole time if you want me to,
That's cool.
but if you can't, just let me know and I'll switch to English. Like these are people who are good in both languages, so I don't know if it is. There's some situations where the person couldn't speak hardly any English at all, which that went how it went, so that worked for me. But the people who were very good at English, they still didn't want to switch to English. They wanted me to learn, so it was good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sure. And then, all right, to wrap this up, and final question to you is, as you're now the hero, the leader of the introverted language learners out there.
Sam.
What's your main piece of advice to someone who considers themselves introverted or considers themselves maybe shy, and they go to learn a foreign language in an immersion context, to the country or whatever? I know a lot of people go to countries, they spend months, years there, they don't learn anything because they keep themselves in their English bubble or their native language bubble, which is much easier, especially if you have a hard time meeting new people. So you've been there for a week. It seems like you're doing pretty well for yourself. What are some main kind of tips you have to your fellow introverted brethren and sistren?
Yeah, sistren, huh? Yeah, so one thing that I sometimes fall back on is, it's fine if you get tired of talking to people after a while, and you want to be at home, but just be honest with yourself, right? And then the second thing that's really helped me is to do things that make it impossible for you to not see people throughout your day. So set yourself up for inevitable success. So if there's some kind of classes here that you can take, if I was in another country, maybe there's a dance classes or something you could take, or a meetup class where you have to speak in the language because you're just here, and sign up and do that almost every day, and put money on it, and you're I already paid for it, so now I have to do it, and then that will go.
Are you something like that right now, or
no? I don't know what I don't know what there is to do here for that, but
Mike gives advice that he doesn't follow himself.
I'm just saying, for future places, there's other places like that, or just stay in a place that is in the middle of stuff, so you don't have a choice to be at home. You kind of have to go outside. Don't get.
Are you doing that?
Yeah, don't get in there.
I'm actually in the countryside.
I'm inside because I have to do this call, but.
No. Is your place in a place where you're are you central location in Palermo? Or?
Yeah, this is in the center of the city. I can just walk outside. I'm in the center, and don't get an Airbnb with a kitchen or something. So then you have to go out and eat. So just do that, and it forces you to go.
Gotcha. So yeah, you've been. It sounds like then it seems like you kind of hacked this aspect of your life a long time ago, but just I've noticed with you, despite when we're in Budapest together, despite the fact that I'm a lot more extroverted than you. You were a lot more social than me. I would just kind of go to work and then go home and just not do anything. And then you're oh, hey, I'm on this mountain on this tour and doing all this stuff. How do you do this? So it seems like your trick then is just you use a kind of burst of willpower to sign up for a bunch of Facebook and couchsurfing events and then commit yourself to it. And then you just kind of ride the wave and then hope you don't die from over sanity indulgence. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, it's overwhelming at first, and also it's it was pretty overwhelming for me to come to Italy at first, because when I switch to a country where the language is completely different, it takes at least a couple of days for me to kind of get my bearings on things. So I wouldn't rush it either. But again, I would be honest with myself. Yeah.
So
that's my life advice.
All right. Well, thanks for calling home. We worry about you, Mike. You have to call home more often. But I'm glad for the update. It sounds like you're having a good time. Yeah. So next week, when we do our next update, Mike is going to show us his Italian after his, 10 days or so. How many days in total will you be in Italy? 2 weeks?
Yeah, a little bit less than 2 weeks. So about 2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks. So after his 2 weeks in Italy, we're going to see what his Italian is like. He's going to do I've tasked him with the challenge of finding someone in Italy to do a call with, well, not do a call, but do a recording with in person in some kind of cool Palermo backdrop. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. If you want to learn more about this mission, check out the blog. We have other videos. You can see his past updates. My prediction, once again, is that Mike will reach a point that we call the shift before the end of this month. And my prediction is the way it's going to work, this is how it usually works for me, is you'll be kind of overwhelmed and you're learning Italian quickly here. But you won't reach the shift while you're in Italy. I think that once you go back to the US and your brain's had a bit of time to kind of rest and absorb all the information, you're going to wake up one day in New York and it's be like, and you're just going to be like super good at Italian. So that's my prediction. We'll see if I'm right. If you want to find out if I'm right, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Keep following us. We got a lot more cool things coming for you guys in the pipeline. Mike, any final words for our audience?
Just keep up with what's going on, guys. You're going to be pretty surprised, I hope. I just didn't nail my own coffin there. Yeah,
I hope so too. All right, cool, man. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.